If you want to build an app and you're non-technical, you can either hire developers or you can try and find a co-founder. And I want to go through the pros and cons. I have been running a software development company for the past 3 years. I've helped a lot of people build their MVPs. I've seen people fail. I've seen people succeed. And I thought maybe I could help people who want to get started on this journey but are confused. The major pro of finding a co-founder is obviously that you find somebody as invested as you are, ideally, right? And also somebody who's going to have skin in the game as much as you do, or at least pretty close to it. Whereas obviously if you hire a developer, it's a little bit different because they are being paid to do that thing and they don't necessarily have the same skin in the game as you do. But the bigger con of finding a co-founder is that if they take longer to find usually because you want to find somebody who's a really good fit, because if they're not a good fit, you risk basically bringing on somebody who's going to mess up your business big time. And if they're not somebody who's got the right values and things like that, you've just got essentially yourself a crook in your own company. And that is a risk, and co-founder breakups can be very, very painful and very disastrous. The other side of that, the flip side, is hiring developers. Now, hiring developers, the pros are that faster. Generally, it's also less commitment. And so that means if at any point you change your mind about having them on board or whatever, you can flip that switch relatively easily. The flip side of that is that because you are paying them, you might never have their full kind of heart and mind dedicated to the job. And I think that is a different task in and of itself. But I think if you make the right hires, you can find somebody who's truly dedicated, but that takes time. Now, if you are going to start building an app, I generally think that it's a good idea to at some point have some kind of technical co-founder brought in if you are running a specifically software company. But if you're running a company that's kind of outside of that, I think you can go a very long way by hiring the right people. And to be honest, I've also still seen companies that are founded by non-technical people. They have hired technical talent, and making the right hires, honestly, you can go a very long way without necessarily bringing in a technical co-founder and things like that. It's not the most traditional route, but honestly, I've seen people do it pretty well. At the end of the day, if you have the right understanding of a problem, you can guide an engineer to solve that problem and you can still make your company work. And so I think that is immensely valuable as a skill set to be able to just understand a problem, and you don't need a technical co-founder for that necessarily, but I do think it's definitely a nice option to have. Now, the most important thing, if you are going to hire a developer, just make sure there's somebody who you see eye to eye on in terms of values. If you are building a company, when you're operating at the very, very start of your relationship, things will change. You need somebody who's going to be flexible, who's going to be transparent, and you need somebody who you can trust to ask. That is the most important thing if you want to hire or find a co-founder. The thing about the co-founder is because they have skin in the game, generally it's pretty reliable that they're somebody trustworthy, because if they do something that hurts the company, they hurt themselves as well. If you're going to hire a developer, just make sure there's somebody who's actually going to work in your best interest and not just in their own best interest. What I mean by that is if you ask, hey, should we build the thing that's going to take 2 months or 1 month? You have to make sure that there's somebody who's actually going to give you a transparent list of pros and cons. There will be agencies or developers that if you ask, should we do the 1 or 2 month build or this or that, they're just not going to give you a full picture. Now, it's not to say that sometimes building for longer does make sense. Often can be the case, but it is really important, whoever you are hiring, if you're going to hire, make sure you guys see eye to eye on the values that are most important. And this is beyond kind of employment and whatever, but in life, I think, at least for me, for example, I think I really value honesty and things like that, even if sometimes it doesn't work in my best interest. The other day, I put out a video basically telling people to try and make MVPs by themselves. Well, and guess what? That doesn't necessarily work to my best interest. But I think it's really important that you understand the values that people operate on, whether they're more interested in being truthful up front or trying to get more out of you. Now, I operate under the assumption that the more truthful and helpful I am to people overall, in due time, even if right now that money doesn't come, in years down the line, I think it does. This is the place that I operate from. If it were me, I would want to find somebody who operates from that same place, who views the world the same way. That's the point. It's really not about me, but I'm just using myself as an example because it's easier, because I have worked with a lot of agencies who don't see eye to eye on that. And unfortunately, that's been incredibly painful for me. Like, I've hired agencies and just spent money that I really shouldn't have. That's the major thing. It's just, if you're hiring somebody and you don't have anybody technical on the team, you make sure that there's somebody who you can trust. That's the most important thing. Like, if you are going to make your first hire, if you're going to rely on external development that's not in-house, just make sure it's trustworthy development. If they can't do something, they should tell you. If they can't do a particular feature, or if they tell you, hey, I'm going to try, but maybe I can't do that, that's fine. They're being transparent about their abilities. You want to make sure that you find somebody who is transparent about what they can and cannot do. I think that's just the best that I can give give in terms of advice from seeing people like hire us and seeing people try to hire other developers as well. Sometimes we've had people come to us after they've worked with other developers and they've really suffered. There's lots of construction workers who can build the same building at the end of the day. It really does come down to what are the fundamental values that you operate on, that you think are important. You want to find somebody who sees eye to eye on those. I think that's the most important thing. If I were a non-technical person building something and I needed to move fast, unfortunately to move fast is usually you need a developer because it's very hard to force yourself to find a co-founder really fast. And so if you need to move fast, just make sure you are able to find somebody who you are comfortable trusting. Like build a relationship, spend some time with them, whatever it is. I think that is the best thing that you can do. It's paramount that you are able to find good people, especially in the start, who are not going to try and screw you over, because as a startup, it's hard. Everything in business is very hard when you're very small. Yeah. Anyway, that's it. Feel free to comment any questions. I've been running this agency for 3.5 years. I think maybe this is helpful to some people who are thinking about building any kind of software. Yeah, I record every day and I will answer as many of those comments as possible.